the heart of Gainesville, Florida, stands a building that once pulsed with music, laughter, and the spirit of a people determined to celebrate life in the face of segregation. The Cotton Club was more than just a nightclub. It was a sanctuary, a cultural crossroads, and a symbol of Black excellence. Today, through the vision of a remarkable woman and a small staff of dedicated people, this historic landmark has been reborn. Gainesville sits in north central Florida, where warm temperatures, lush landscapes, and fertile land have shaped generations of communities. Long before it became known as a college town, the region was home to farms and plantations worked by enslaved Africans, whose descendants helped build the city's churches, schools, and neighborhoods. In Gainesville's East Side community, Black families created businesses, civic organizations, and entertainment venues that served as anchors of cultural pride.
Here is a stabilizer in that there are organizations, there are companies, there are people on northwest side of town who have never come to this side of town. The Cotton Club Museum brings them here now. My name is Vivian Filer, and I am the CEO and founder of the Cotton Club Museum. I have been in Gainesville since I was 7 years old, which has been a long time since I'm 85. So the Cotton Club Museum now has become sort of a coming together place. We don't just offer something just for Black folk, because if we don't teach Black history to all people, then there's no point in us being here. Our history is threefold in that we were built by soldiers in World War II, so we have that concept of history to work with. We also were the first Black theater on this side of town. We have that to go with. Our building is over 60 years old, and the fact that through those doors, entertainers such as James Brown, B.B. King, and all of those came, and we still have the same stage. Gainesville has changed a lot since the time I came, because obviously I came through the Jim Crow Civil Rights era. So African Americans were second-class citizens and had no rights and had to work the back of the bus. We went through that whole era, and I was a civil rights worker. In the boardrooms that I sat in, and the people that I was sat in there with, and being the only Black in the room, and hearing things that I knew weren't quite right, and figuring out how I was going to get these people not only to hear me, but to affect change. I think God brought me in the world to be a nurse, because I really attached myself to that profession early on in life. I was lived across the street over there when I was a little girl, and I used to watch two very exciting women as they walked down the street going about their businesses being community health nurses. They were the first two African American public health nurses in Alachua County. And all of that, I think led me to where I am now. But I'm very fortunate, I think, and I'm very satisfied that I've had such a diverse experience in life. This is an old loom that uses one string as it goes along to make the threads. But we brought in people who are doing modern, using the modern looms, who take in many, many threads and make fabric. And they teach it. They set up over there and people can sit down and make a small piece of material. My little great goddaughter was just carried away. She was not leaving. And she came in here. We set our day up to be multifaceted because along with marching down from the Depot Park, we set up a big stage outside. We use our inside stage. And so inside is a lot of teaching. We teach the loom, we teach sometimes music, we teach whatever. We have a whole table set up that recognizes the Union soldiers. This lady has documented it. She has the books. She teaches from it. And the people really are happy to have that part. Dolores Rents out there, we set up an entire side of the yard and we put down little crosses about this size. And she has researched the Union soldiers that have passed, and we make crosses and put those down. And during the celebration, when she reads those names off, talks about them, that one of our audience members can pick up a flower and lay it there. Now, you know I got that from Miss Hopkins Barnes. I am so proud to say where it came from, but it means so much to people here because they never would have had that. So it really is important. So that's what we tried to do.
Black community, the Cotton Club became Gainesville's premier venue for African American entertainment during the Jim Crow era.
Our current visiting exhibit, and it's titled The Wisdom of Anansi, Ceramic Sculptures by Alex Oluku. Alex is a graduate student at the University of Florida, and so all the statues in the exhibit were created by Alex at his workshop here in Gainesville. There are 9 pieces, and each of these pieces is based on an Anansi tale. So Alex tells the story of the tale, and then he relates it to the sculpture. The Anansi spider, of course, imparts wisdom, and so each of the tales imparts some type of wisdom based on the actions of the Anansi spider and those in it.
As segregation ended and the entertainment patterns changed, the Cotton Club closed its doors and fell into despair. For years, one of Florida's most important Black landmarks stood at a risk of being lost forever. Members of the neighboring Mount Olive Baptist Church recognized that the Cotton Club was more than just an old building. It was sacred history. It was our history. Their commitment to preserving the structure laid the groundwork for extraordinary restoration efforts. Powerful.
The wall is cement. The floor is cement. We have the cement door outside. It's going up, baby.
Yes.
And so not only were the walls cement and the doors and everything and the metal drop downs for the windows, but the reels, the extra reels that weren't shown, had to be kept in a metal container. And it may have taken more than one reel for a movie. So this is their box that they were kept in. Isn't that something? I tried to make out what this was. It was an old bill, but they didn't save it when they started working on it. This shelf is something that was there. And then the old fuse boxes. Way back when. This was the electric part of it. This one is older than that one is. But that, we try to hold on to that. Wow. This is our, yeah. This is new stuff, and it's for the new, what am I trying to say? Lamps that shine on the stage. That's who we are. We look pretty good from up here, don't we?
Leading the Cotton Club Museum is Vivian Filer, a visionary educator, historian, and cultural ambassador. In recognition of her dedication to preserve African heritage, she was installed as a Queen Mother in Ghana, an honor that reflects her role as a guardian of history and community.
One of the things that I treasure is being Queen Mother, but it wasn't my idea. Apparently the criteria is based on the impact you've had on your community. So Dr. Patricia Hilliard thought that I met that criteria. She put my name out to be the one to be installed, be the first person to be installed in Gainesville, Malachi County. But unfortunately, Dr. Nunn passed away. But before she died, she told Niece Soala and Papa Soala that she wanted me to be installed and they should be in charge of that. And it was. So they out of Africa, they made my outfit. They made the stool that I was to sit on and the shoes on my feet and sent the protocol. But Papa Niece Soala is from Africa, from the Gar region. And it's the Gar region that made me Queen Mother. So the drumming and the assistant, his brother, was also there, and African dances, and all of it was part of the huge ceremony held when I turned 85 years old, which was in 2023. Big celebration out at the Best Western, and they brought me in ceremonially and with the stool and the whole thing. And I was very pleased to have been chosen to be in this position. I count it a blessing, not because of me the person, but because it represents my African heritage. And at this time, when we need to know who we are African women and men who brought love to this United States. We brought it through motherhood, we brought it through many other ways, but the Queen Mother has a special place. Every Queen Mother doesn't have the same designation. My designation is Manye, which means Queen Mother. Na Ami Ami Osu Owa Okrapon the First. Now, Ami Ami, Mother of the Mothers. The rest of my name, it connects me with the children. Mother who loves and cares for her children. But it also signifies that I should be an ear to listen, but not a mouth to talk. Confidentially, I should listen. I should be one that can give advice. My sister said, that's not new. I've been thinking I'd do that all the time anyway. Anyway, I love that because I'm a retired professor of nursing, and peace was my background. So the children are certainly in my reign of love. But since I'll be 88, anything under my age is my child. So I don't mind claiming, and it's not a African mother and everything. It's a mothering of the world. And that's what African women have done anyway. We've mothered the Europeans. We've mothered, because that's innate in our being. So I was made into Queen Mother, and then I was fortunate in 24 to visit Mother Africa. I was able to go to Ghana. I visited the region, actually the very kingdom that made me Queen Mother in the Ghana region. And when I met with them, they also made me an elder. So I was very proud of that. So Queen Mother has now been celebrated with the documentary that we introduced last week, actually. Big celebration. People came. I wanted them to see what it felt like to go to Mother Africa and to walk into the doom and gloom of the door of no return. I wanted them to see us washing our feet in the place where we did return. I wanted them to see the magnitude of the culture. Some regions who all of their bartering is outside. Some regions are very, very modern, and you can get anything you wanted in the level. But all of it is Mother Africa, and all of it gave love to me. So it was just a most endearing experience. 14 days in Ghana. But I've been to Africa before, I've been to Ghana before, but we traveled in the high level areas, so did all that. But this time, it was just covering the region, seeing everybody, seeing the goats. They said at night, how do the goats know how do people know whose goat belonged to them? They said the goats know. At night they go home. Isn't that something? They're all over the place. At night they go home. It's just amazing. And to see them, all the things material, to watch them sit there with their feet and hand and make material. I mean, they're putting these intricate patterns in, and the foot is going because the loom is manual. It is not material. Now they do have some, they're modernizing, but I watched this myself. It was so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And then we actually went in the store to buy the material that had been made. It was great. Watch them make the beads. I mean, rolling them in the sand to make them shine. All of this by hand. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Today, the Cotton Club Museum and Cultural Center is both a memorial to the past and a vibrant center for the future. Visitors encounter the Anansi exhibit, inspired by the beloved West African storyteller whose web of wisdom connects generations. The beautifully restored stage hosts performances, lectures, and educational programs that keep culture alive. The museum also explores a deep story of Gainesville and Alachua County, from plantation labor to entrepreneurship, education, and civic leadership. These stories reveal the resilience of a community that transforms hardship into heritage.
When people come in here, they get a feel for what Gainesville really, in Alachua County, really was like back in the day. We know that they brought enslaved people over. The Chestnuts here were a part of the family. The Chestnuts, the Hales were. And one of the things that they have done, as they have named the plantation, the sites, is they've changed the names to be something else, take plantation off. So we look up here and we look at Kanapaha Gardens, it's called here. But it's Kanapaha Plantation in reality. And we look around at other places that they have, and the Dudley up here, it was a plantation. They named it the Dudley Farm. So the children, when they go there, they don't learn about a plantation. They think they learn about a farm. So in this room, we want them to know that was not a farm. That was a plantation. So as Tricia pulled out those entities to be able to show. So when I bring children in here to talk, we talk about the reality of what African Americans live through. And so this has become a real popular room for the times that students are here. But there's a lot to learn. There's still a very prominent family that came out of this plantation, and that's the Chestnut family. They're a black family that have been here since this time when in 1861. And they are, Mr. Chestnut, the Chuck Chestnut, is on the county commission, but his dad was on the commission. His mom, his stepmother really now, is on the city commission, but they've all served all of this time, and they are a great family who contributed a lot to this city, a lot, and still do. So we're very proud of this room, very proud, and have taught a lot. We'll continue to teach from this room because an audio vision makes a difference. And if you can show a child something, they can ask questions and they find things. But even adults too. I mean, they're carried away with the fact that we're talking about that. But another thing I really need to show you out here is this lynchings that were in Newberry. Back, Tricia researched lynchings in Newberry, Florida. And what she found was a tree that actually held 6 bodies. And around each body was a family having a picnic. And when I tell the children that, they are in awe, but it's in reality true. Tricia was able to find the families that were connected with those 6 bodies. She had those people found that were buried and brought them all and put them back in the same burial spot out at Pleasant Plains out in Alachua, not near Alachua. But it's so beautiful there. She also put a marker there to commemorate this memory. She found these families and had them together for conversations and telling their story. And then when she passed away, her husband buried her there with her. It's just amazing. There's so much history around here. So we're very happy. You saw from down there where we started and where we've come from. But there's a lot here. Not only I talked about this. Were you there when I talked about this? This is a pulpit. We think that it's the guy who restored it for us says that he thinks it was late 1890s built in. It came out of our church, Mount Olive AM Church, and was probably there during that time because our church is 137. He's busy somewhere along that age, but it had deteriorated. The termites had eaten it up pretty much, and he came to see it and promised us he could restore it. And we celebrated that, and we made it a part of our Emancipation Day celebration. We had him talk about the value and all the significance of it.
Alachua County is a jewel in north central Florida. Its beautiful springs, majestic landscapes, commerce, and cultural centers nestled around the University of Florida make it a magnet for people around the globe. But how many Alachua County residents know about the early history of the area? How many people know about the planters and farmers who filtered in after Andrew Jackson and General Edmund P. Gaines fought wars in an effort to remove the Seminole Indians from the area? Finally, how many people know about the population of enslaved Africans who were treated like property and who were forced to labor, yet made it possible for Alachua County to grow? This true story is dedicated to those laborers. Who were they? Where were they from? How did enslaved residents of Alachua County arrive here, and what did they do when they were free? Today we will explore their story and move it from the shadows of history. We do not know exactly where all of those who were enslaved in Alachua County came from. We do know that they had origins in Africa, the birthplace of the human race and the cradle of civilization. The Africans were taken against their will. They were intelligent, creative, and talented people with a sophisticated understanding of science, agriculture, medicine, mathematics, architecture, religion, and much more. They had families, jobs, traditions, and responsibilities in their communities. These human beings were brutally enslaved by the Portuguese, the French, the Spanish, and the English, Americans, and others. Often other Africans from different tribes would sell them. Depending on where they were taken to dungeons located along the African coast, where they awaited removal from their homeland. From the dungeons, where the normal stay was 6 months, they were placed on ships. For most of the journey, these human beings were tied below deck, laid out in such a way as to squeeze in as many people as possible. They were treated like cargo. The conditions were horrifying. Many did not survive the journey. The ships transported the enslaved Africans to places all over the world. The descendants of these Africans make up what is known as the African diaspora, or the dispersion of people throughout the globe. Africans were taken to many destinations, including America. Some were eventually taken to Alachua County. They were sold on auction blocks to the highest bidder. Families were often separated for life. So how did Africans arrive in Alachua County, Florida? In 1860, enslaved Africans made up 54% of the population in Alachua County, the 7th largest slave-holding county in Florida. But Alachua County was not always like this. Once it was populated by the Patano Indians. Later, the Spanish established a cow farm on what was called the Alachua Prairie, now part of Payne Prairie. Slavery existed in Florida since at least the mid-1500s, when Spanish explorers and settlers brought enslaved Africans to help build St. Augustine. When Florida was ruled by the Spanish, it was a magnet for enslaved people in slave-owning states like the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, and others. In Spanish-ruled Florida, they could live freely if they converted to Catholicism. Some worked as artisans, builders, and housekeepers, while others served in the military to help defend the Spanish territory. Not all Africans living in Florida at the time converted to Catholicism. Some chose to live as maroons or fugitive slaves in the Florida wilderness, hidden from white and some Native Americans who sought to re-enslave them. Still others owned property and lived among the Spanish. Some considered themselves Seminole Indians. Some of these people lived right here in Alachua County. The African-Seminole Indian relationship was complex. Some of those Africans were enslaved by Indian Seminoles, while others married, worked with, and fought alongside the Indians. Seminoles like Negro Abraham, Jumper John, and Ben Bruno were a few of the blacks who served as translators and counselors to the Seminole chiefs during the 1800s. The Spanish ceded Florida to the British in 1763 after signing the Treaty of Paris. This was not good for Africans, as the British practiced a harsher form of slavery and did not afford blacks any rights. By the end of the American Revolutionary War, British planters fled the state, and Spain was again in control of Florida. When the British left, they left some enslaved laborers behind. In an effort to increase the population, Spanish and non-Spanish settlers were allowed to settle in Florida. This time they did not have to convert to Catholicism, and they were allowed to bring their families and enslaved laborers. As an extra incentive, they were given 50 acres for each person that they brought to the territory, free or enslaved. This and the importation of hundreds of additional slaves contributed to a steady increase in the numbers of enslaved people in Florida. 1800 to 1860 can be described as a key period of enslavement in Alachua County. This period saw a marked increase in the planters and the establishment of Florida as a territory and eventually a state of the United States of America. It also saw the founding of Alachua County and the establishment of the county seat in Gainesville, so that planters and farmers could benefit from the new railroad line, a key development in making Alachua County one of the top producers of Sea Island cotton. The fact that Alachua County has an area called Arredondo in today's Gainesville does not hint about the life lived by the man that the area is named after, Don Fernando de la Maza Arredondo. He, like many others, was in the business of buying and selling Africans. In 1817, Arredondo was given 289,000 acres of land by the King of Spain for his service in the defense of St. Augustine. This land includes what we call Alachua County today. Despite all of the significant changes that took place in Alachua County, the three Seminole Wars stand out as the defining moments in the direction that the county would take. Because the Seminoles were living independently on their land, the Americans were nervous. Alachua County planters and farmers, threatened by the presence of Seminole Indians and the Africans living among them, wrote a letter to President Andrew Jackson in January of 1832. It read, "The subscriber citizens of Alachua County respectfully represent that the present situation of the county and its inhabitants induce them to request that a company of U.S. troops may be ordered from Cantonment, Brook, Tampa Bay, or some other station to Camp King near the Seminole Indian Agency to suggest as reason, therefore, that there are a much larger proportion of slaves than white persons owned by the citizens within 30 miles of the northern boundary of the Seminole Indian Nation, and more than 1,600 Indian warriors and 1,100 slaves belonging to the Indians, many of whom are traversing the county night and day." By 1845, Florida became a state. This must have been great news for the early planters who had already established themselves in Alachua County. It meant United States protection. Throughout all of the changes in the ownership of Florida, the Africans, for the most part, remained enslaved. I am standing in front of the Noonensville Cemetery. In fact, the Noonensville Cemetery is the only thing that's really left of the town of Noonensville, which was the first county seat for Alachua County. Noonensville was originally called Dells, and it was named after the planter brothers who established it. The Dell brothers the institution of slavery because it was good for their lives and the economy of their communities. In his letter to the editor of the Tallahassee Sentinel, the former territorial governor of Florida, Richard Call, wrote, "The institution of African slavery has become the great agency of civilization. It is feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, and administering to the wants and necessities of the whole civilized world. It is sending commerce and civilization to barbarous tribes and carrying Christianity into heathen lands." Debates about the merits of slavery took place all the time. Most white Alachua County residents had come to rely on the benefits of the system of slavery, which gave them more rank over blacks. Many things contributed to the start of the Civil War. One factor was the election of Abraham Lincoln to the presidency of the United States. Southerners, for the most part, had come to rely on the labor of enslaved Africans, and they felt that their livelihood was threatened. Africans looked forward to the possibility of being free. Alachua County fully supported the Confederate cause when Florida seceded from the Union. The county was the site of a few battles during the Civil War. It was a storage site for cattle, corn, rice, and other food that the Confederate soldiers might need. The condition of enslaved Africans did not change during the war, as they were expected to continue working. In fact, their work often increased as they had to help oversee things and assist the plantation wives in the absence of the owners. Some enslaved Africans ran away. Sometimes their masters rented them out to the Confederate cause. Still, others registered to fight for the Union. An article written about one of the 1864 skirmishes appeared in the Chelsea Telegraph. 36 Negroes were brought away from Gainesville. Of these, 33 enlisted, and they mean enlisted in the Union. So much for the theory that enslaved Africans were happy with their condition. The writer also describes the actions of blacks. A house servant brought in an Enfield rifle which his master had set up against a fence while superintending the work of the field hands. Bringing the weapon into the town, he insisted on being allowed by Captain Marshall to strike a blow for liberation of his race. The Negroes procured clubs and begged for permission to fight on the side of the Yankees. They started building the house in 1848. Bailey moved his family and some 34 enslaved Africans to the area in 1852. That the house is still standing is a testament to the skill and craftsmanship of those laborers. In 1853, Major Bailey sold 63 acres of his land to Alachua County to provide what would become the new county seat, Gainesville. When Alachua County residents learned that the new railroad line connecting Fernandina with Cedar Key was not going to pass through Noonanville, they voted to move the county seat southeast to the current location. The railroad, which was funded by David Yulee, was critical to the growth of Alachua County because it provided a way to transport all of the cotton, vegetables, and other items that enslaved laborers grew, harvested, packed, and delivered to trains. Corn, cattle, hogs, sheep.
The vision for the Cotton Club Museum and Cultural Center continues with plans to restore Perryman's grocery store, preserving yet another cornerstone of the neighborhood life, extending the Cotton Club's legacy into the future through education and economic cultural revitalization. The Cotton Club Museum reminds us that history is not something we simply remember. It is something we restore, we protect, and pass forward. Thanks to Vivian Fowler and her team and the community she inspires, the music of this place still plays, calling future generations to know who they are and where they come from. In the words of Miss Vivian Fowler, if we protect our history, we preserve our identity. Visit the Cotton Club Museum in Gainesville, Florida. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Watch and listen to our museum tour podcast brought to you by Florida African American Heritage Preservation Network on Gift TV, on Roku and mobile devices, YouTube, Podbean, and Spotify. We are the culture keepers of FAAPHN. Stay connected and stay inspired.